Nelson Woss, can you tell us what's happened with the Coco DVD? Apparently the film has been quite a hit on a format that we were told was on the way out.
Well, it's really unusual. The third film, Coco, has sort of taken off in the home market. So the distributor only wanted to do digital, as everyone seems to be going in that direction at the moment, but we've had such an inundation from people that want to actually physically own something that we're doing this DVD release, and I'm getting letters from all over the world, which is rather nice.
Why did you make this film?
We made Coco mainly as I wanted a legacy for my mate. Coco was my dog, and he remained with me after filming of Red Dog, and we were, if you've seen the film, we were inseparable, and I cared about that dog a lot. He certainly changed my life in a big way, opened me up to thinking in different ways. And I noticed during the time that he was with me that he impacted a lot of other people, and I wanted to celebrate that. And we had this opportunity to do a very low budget film. I'm not sure if you know the filmmakers, Dom and Aaron, but they had done an exceptionally cool film called Top Knot Detective. Have you seen that film by any chance?
I'm afraid I haven't, no.
I highly recommend it. It's a spoof documentary that creates a whole world of a 1980s SBS hit show, which was really quite unique. And I saw that film and I just knew these guys could come up with a low-budget, it was made for a ridiculous amount of money, really. And we wanted to create this sort of legacy for Coco. I'm not sure if you're aware, but since Coco passed, over $125,000 has been donated to this dog shelter that's featured in the film. And we wanted to celebrate his life and have a legacy that goes on. And so, we got this opportunity to make this tiny film, and it had an alternative content release theatrically over a year ago with no marketing support, and a few people saw it. But what's happened is, since the pandemic, I guess a lot of people are consuming media and content at home. And the film's done very, very well on digital, but for the last probably, since March of this year, we've just been inundated with requests, people that have seen the film and want to share it, but they want to actually physically own it, okay? And I think there's two reasons for this. I think for whatever reason, people stuck at home in lockdowns have connected with the feeling of the film about celebrating people, or whoever is the special person in your life, whether it's a dog or a partner or whatever, to take a moment and celebrate being in the moment with them, because things can change very quickly. And even though it's a tiny film and a comedy, it does celebrate that theme. Anyway, the long and short of it is, we've just had it played at Heartland in America, so quite a few Americans saw it. And we've just been inundated with letters saying, when are you doing a DVD? And we never had a plan to do a DVD, but we've decided to do one. And I think the other reason where there seems to be a demand for it is, we did this thing that sort of unconsciously, we didn't really realise what we were doing. But when we were shooting the film, we did a shout out on our Facebook page for dog lovers to send a picture of their dog, of themselves with their special friend, right? And we got inundated. We got 9,000 photos. Okay, we were expecting 200, because we wanted to just put them in the end of the film. We got over 9,000. And we put as many, I'm not sure if, at the end of the film, you've seen that collage. They're all real people, Red Dog fans, people that have either seen Red Dog or Red Dog True Blue, that sent us their photos with their dog, and we inserted it in the movie. It's also, you've probably seen the mosaic poster. They're all our fans. So we wanted to embed our fans into the movie. So what we then had was 9,000 people that had sent us content that feel they're part of the movie, and they want to own it. They don't want to digitally own it. They want to actually physically own a copy of it.
That's probably because what you've done with Coco is recreate the feeling of the original dog that people come to adopt the DVD the way they would adopt the dog. They're relating to it in the same way.
They adopt the film. That's been the case with all three films. And what I can say is if anyone felt an emotional impact to either of the first two films, like they can watch Coco, which was made on a completely different production methodology, but I think they have what I call the Red Dog experience when they watch the film. Like they get captured. You know, it's exactly like Red Dog to some degree. Like I remember when people first saw Red Dog and they didn't know about it. Like there hadn't been reviews. They walk in and, you know, it starts off. A guy drives a truck into town. It's an Aussie movie. All of a sudden, Noah Taylor's pointing a gun at the dog, and they don't know whether to laugh or cry. They're like, "What the fuck is this film?" Right? But then slowly the stories about the people start getting told, and all of a sudden they relax and go with it, and then they connect with the dog, and then they obviously go through this emotional ride that, you know, ends in the third act. And people have the same thing about the Coco film, but on a much smaller, like they have the same emotional impact, but it's a much smaller film. It starts off and you go, what is this? Is this a documentary? Is this real? Is this fake? Is this whatever? And then they go for a ride, and then they suddenly go, oh wow, that was the real dog. And I do think the directors have been very, very clever in that they have captured the soul of Coco in a surprising way, because they didn't have the resources that, say, Kriv and I had on the first two films. So hats off to them. It's
fair to say, isn't it, that the film ends up being as much about you as it is about the dog?
The character that is the Nelson character is the audience. You know, that's everybody's relationship with a dog or a special person. It was not my intention to be involved in a film about me. It was to celebrate Coco's journey. And you know, I grew up watching films like Being There, right? And I loved the concept of Chauncey Gardner like having an impact on people in a big way. And Coco was the Chauncey Gardner or the Forrest Gump of dogs. Yeah, he was a failed show dog that somehow became a star. And I just thought, who really did have the number of people, I've travelled all around the world with these films, and the number of people that have been impacted and moved by the, Coco's, the performance of playing Red Dog really blew my mind. And that's what I think is in the film. But for whatever reason, people connect with it.
Was it the case that before you made the film, you had a general understanding of the way dogs relate to people, but that your experience after the film actually realised what was beforehand just a theory, that you actually lived the experience told in the film after you made it?
I grew up with dogs, and dogs have always been a part of my life. But I left Australia and I worked in Hollywood for 20 years, okay, to not great success, okay. I worked for Universal. I made Ned Kelly in Australia, but I was, got smashed by the director. I didn't have a family. I had no interest in having kids. I wasn't a very, I didn't probably acknowledge the special people in my life. Having that connection with Coco transformed me in the sense that I suddenly realised that when you do have a special person or relationship in your life, you really have to be in the moment and enjoy it, because it might not always be around, okay? And it certainly altered my thinking, having, as a guy that travelled constantly for my work, I live in Perth, right? Not only am I not allowed to leave Australia, I'm not allowed to, at the current time, I haven't been allowed to leave the state, right? I mean, I'm here since February. And I've got to say, it's been the best thing that's ever happened, because I've spent more time. I got 3 young kids, 4, 6, and 11, and I've spent more time than I probably ever would have had the opportunity to spend that time with. And I don't think I would have been open to thinking that way had I not had that connection with Coco. He really did change I fell in love with that dog. He was my mate, and we were inseparable, and I can't describe it any more than that.
The film is very entertaining. It's very well made and very well constructed. It doesn't look like the kind of slapped together film that we normally get when we see making of docos. Whose idea was it to make Coco, a Red Dog story, a kind of comedy documentary?
There was always a concept. We made Red Dog, and the team behind Red Dog wanted to had an unusual scenario where we were given the opportunity to make an additional, either a prequel or sequel. So we started developing ideas. Sadly, during that process, Coco passed on, and we sort of. We always had this idea of doing something that was like the Forrest Gump or the Chauncey Gardner of dog movies, right? We developed it, but we couldn't quite crack it. And then we pivoted and we made the prequel, Red Dog True Blue. Kriv, who you know, and I had very young children around that time. We wanted to, the other thing we thought, if we had the opportunity to make another film, we thought we'd like to make a children's film so that our kids could see, we love Hollywood Disney movies, but we thought our kids should at least have a balance and see an Australian film in the same way that, we grew up seeing Storm Boy and stuff like that. And I think Red Dog True Blue achieved that. But there was always this Coco story in the background, but it was how to do it. And then we'd won some prize money in a film festival. We won Heartland twice, and there was a little bit of prize money. And we basically used that money to develop the Coco story, but it really had to be made for a minuscule budget. And there was no way that the old fart filmmakers, Kriv, Dan and Nelson, would have been able to do it. So we had to find a team of young filmmakers that had a production methodology that could tell that story in an entertaining way, and that we could contribute and make sure that it had elements of what I call the Red Dog brand, but it was an indie film. We wanted it to have the same feeling that the first Red Dog had for those younger filmmakers, right? And I would urge you to see Top Knot Detective if you can find it. They're really clever guys. They love film, and they were able to do stuff on a shoestring. And I think how we contributed is we made sure that it had heart. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think if you look at the filmmaking, you'll see that it's really clever. It was a really good team effort on Coco because everyone contributed in a way that I think 1 + 1 + 1 = 10. Kriv's involved with the film. You can see he's an interview subject. Dan's in the film. Anyone that was involved with the other two films were open to this idea because everyone loved Coco. They wanted to make sure that he was celebrated and had a legacy.
Can you give us a ballpark as to what the budget was?
I can say it was truly independent, and that's why it's been nominated. Do you know that it's been nominated in the indie film category at the Actors? It scored a nomination, which was beyond our wildest dreams.
Now, with your hand on your heart, can you tell me, is this film 100% true? Because there are some claims in it that seem a bit dubious. For instance, the idea that the dog was involved in the Mad Max film, or that Kriv Stenders has an allergy to dogs. Sounds a bit dodgy.
It's not a fictionalized film, but it's not a documentary either. I think that's what's interesting about it, is it sort of straddles genres. Some people, it kind of blew their head because they found it, some of the crazy stuff, like the stuff that you think is not true is actually true, and the stuff that is exaggerated is the stuff that you don't think is true. So I'll give you an example. Coco being a failed show dog, true. In fact, on the DVD, it's funny you say this because we have a whole thing saying true or false. Hand on my heart, this is true. Was he a failed show dog? Yes, he was. He was a champion show dog that got randy and had to stop being shown. Why was he a failed show dog? Because his tail went up. Did the filmmakers of Red Dog really need a dog whose tail went up? Yes, that's true. Were we kind of adept filmmakers at the time, as in like kind of not very smart? Yes, that's true. Was the dye stuff true? Yes, we fucked up our other spare dog. And, you know, when filmmakers make films like Lassie or Benji, they have about 6 dogs. We had 2 and we fucked the other one up. So Coco did the whole movie by himself. When I say that, he did every single close-up with actors. Did he run off the stage at the IF Awards? Yep. I can show you the footage.
But was he going to be in Mad Max?
No. No. There was some other George Miller. Did George Miller like him and call up about him? Yes. Was it about Mad Max? I don't recall that, but it was about, like George Miller's in the film talking about it. Love the dog. Did George Miller say it was okay to do that? Yes. Yes, I think George Miller approved this story. We had to get permission. I really can tell you with my hand on my heart, strike me dead, this is true. He ran off the stage at the IF Awards, and that night, I can show you the footage. I'm not sure if it's in Coco because we actually didn't want to, it was too heavy, which was, I said, that's it, the dog's retired. And he just wanted to be a family dog. And I didn't want to put this dog through, he'd done such a great job, and I think he enjoyed being on Red Dog, but he just didn't want to, he just wanted to be a dog, and it was like that moment in Babe. It was like, that's enough, mate. You can be whatever you want. I love that dog. I didn't want him to be a working dog. I just wanted to love him and be our family dog, and that's what he was for the last couple of years of his life.
You've said you wouldn't do another dog film after the Red Dog series, but given how far technology has come in recreating dogs and animals digitally, would you do another dog film on the condition that it was a digital dog?
I think I might be dogged out. But that being said, I adore working with Daniel Taplitz and Kriv Standards. And if there was an opportunity to do anything with those guys again, like that is my, like working with those guys and getting the team back together, the whole, there was a whole crew, Jeff Hall, the cinematographer, a whole bunch of guys that were part of what I call the Red Dog films are always like a team thing, and there's almost like a alumni of people that worked on them. If there was an opportunity to put the team back together, I would adore to do that, and if it involved a digital dog, I'd do it. just to spend time with those people, because they are really special people to me.
As the producer of these very successful films, what do you think the success of the Red Dog movies say to the Australian film industry about the kinds of films we should be making more of?
I think there should always be a balance where Australians get to tell Australian stories. So if you make an entertaining story, it doesn't matter whether it's from Hollywood or from Australia or from Ireland or Italy, it has to move and affect people, whether it's an emotional way or if it's a horror film, it's got to have an impact that, people haven't, people want to experience. I think more people are experiencing stuff at home than, say, in a packed cinema. So you have to kind of alter your thinking. But I think there'll always be a demand for Australian stories. And I think you've just got to give young filmmakers a chance. In the same way that we got an opportunity to do Red Dog at a certain time in film history, I think you've got to give new filmmakers an opportunity to tell their stories. And they should be stories about stuff they know about or identify. Especially, I would say to any filmmaker who's starting out, wants to tell a story, or produce content for streaming or whatever it is these days. Do something that you really care about and that means something to you, because you probably find that it means something to other people as well.
You really configured the films for a big audience, didn't you?
We never thought our audience was cinephiles. We thought our audience was dog lovers. And it was true. We sold more DVDs of Red Dog in the pet food section at Coles and Woolworths than in the entertainment section. It was dog lovers that liked our movies and connected with them.
The first Red Dog film won Best Film at the Actor Awards. Second film didn't win any, but it got nominated for Best Cinematography. With your hand on your heart, does winning a swag of Actor Awards make a real difference to the film?
I think that when a film has a bit of traction, it gets to do some fun things, like film festivals. Red Dog played all over the world, and it kind of opened up. It really opened our minds that you could tell an Australian story and it could connect in a foreign language, yeah? And some ways, I think having an actor really helped the film. There was a feeling around that time, and I'm sure you remember it, that Australian films were crap, yeah? And that they were all dark and they were all or they'd be really goofy. Remember that there was a kind of genre of Australian films that was sort of like zany, goofy? I think what the actor did in the case of Red Dog is it gave it a validation that allowed there were early adopters of the film, people that just went and saw it and loved it, but then there were other people that didn't see it because they just thought it was a crap. They'd just been desensitized by a period of films that there was just a feeling that Australian films were not good quality. And I think what it did, and we really appreciate, the fact that the industry recognised it and gave it that award, because it really opened up the film to an even wider audience. So yeah, it had a terrific impact, and we will always be grateful for that.
What's next for you?
I'm doing, in my attempt to do more uncommercial movies, I'm doing a movie based on a true story called The Fabulous Palm Springs Follies. And it's a true story about a ragtag bunch of retired show business types that lived in Palm Springs, and against all odds, they staged a kind of like a Ziegfeld Follies show, which was like a variety show on stage, and it became hugely successful in the 1990s. And they all had sort of obstacles as to why they couldn't be a part of this show, but they had this joie de vivre about entertaining people, and they all overcame those obstacles. And what it would do, audiences from all over America would come and see this show, and they'd see these people of a certain age doing the most incredible stuff on stage. Not always well, but just enjoying being on stage and doing something that they're passionate about. And it moved people beyond what it moved me. I saw it probably 20 times. I fell in love with this show. It was so moving, and I got to know a lot of the people in it, and they weren't the stars of Hollywood, but they were all like the backup singers or the chorus line girls, or they were strippers from Vegas, or they were all people that loved show business and had devoted their lives to show business but had sort of been forgotten about. And there was this guy that put them all together on stage, and it became a phenomenon, and people from all over America saw it, and people like Barry Manilow, I think Baz Luhrmann saw it, and it was a phenomenon, and it transformed audiences who saw it, and they thought, wow, if those people can do that, and they're 10 years, I'm 60, and some of those people are 10 or 15 years older than me, I can do whatever is on my bucket list, like there's nothing holding me back from doing something that I always wanted to do, or continuing doing something that I'm passionate about. And that's my dream project that it's set up at Lionsgate. There's a pretty interesting director that I'm being forced, not allowed to say, is attached to it, and we're working on it. The challenge will be, I think it will be like the Expendables of art house movies, because the cast that they're talking about is unbelievable. But how you get a bunch of people together of that age in the current world state is going to be a challenge. But if anybody can do it, Lionsgate will do it. They're a fun studio to work with.